There's a moment on reality TV when all of a sudden everything changes, not due to a blowout or an admission, but due to a glance. And during the season 19 tell-all of Sister Wives, that change occurred when Gwen Brown leaned in and uttered the words that landed like a rock in quiet water. Cut the cameras. It wasn't just abrupt. It wasn't just uncomfortable. It felt like a man losing his grip on a narrative he'd spent years trying to shape. And right there on the sidelines, watching it all unfold, was Gwen, Christine's daughter, with a subtle grin that spoke louder than any scripted moment ever could. Hey friends, this is Anya, and you're watching Reality Recap. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and give this video a like. It really helps get it in front of more folks. Now ask me in the comments, was that the moment you finally realized Cody for what he is? Because if you've been on this Sister Wives journey since season 1, you know this wasn't another dramatic reunion. This was the emotional disintegration of the very premise Cody always said was all about love, unity, and faith. But as the camera pulled back and his voice shook out of the silence, one thing became excruciatingly apparent. He's not the boss anymore. The dream faded. The control slipping quickly. And the women, who were once demurred and relegated, aren't keeping quiet anymore. What transpired in that tell-all wasn't merely a surprise, it was a reckoning. Right from the start, Gwen Brown emphasized one message above all else: unity, one large family, one large home, one common dream that was based on faith, cooperation, and love. That was his sales pitch. That was the illusion. Early in the series, he'd explained to the camera and to anyone who'd listen that plural marriage wasn't romantic. It was the process of creating a tribe. An isolated, independent tribe where the sister wives supported each other and the children were raised among love. And for a time, some of us even really thought he meant it. But at some point between the Flagstaff move and that explosive season 19 tell-all, the whole dream came crashing down, and not slowly. It unraveled like wet paper in a storm. Flagstaff was supposed to be the fresh start, a quiet refuge in the mountains where they could finally come together. Instead, it was the start of the unraveling. The wives were separated from each other, the children grew apart. And Cody? He started to spin, accusing fingers at all but himself. By the time the tell-all premiered, he finally spoke the words aloud. The dream is over. He confessed that the vision of one great united family had fallen apart. Yet in the same breath, he held on to the delusion, as if it hadn't long since died. Teenagers and adults alike watching were shocked, not only by the denial, but by just how disconnected he appeared from the reality everyone else perceived. It was as if he was still battling for a fantasy no one else wanted to be a part of anymore. If that dream was already fractured, then Cody's actions during the tell-all completely destroyed whatever remained. Ever since he sat across from Suki, something was off. You could tell by his body language, folding his arms, setting his jaw, darting his eyes around as though searching for an escape. His responses were smug, abrupt, dismissive. Half the time he simply sat silently in the quiet, letting the painful awkwardness speak more volumes than any words ever could. And when he did talk, he spoke with a sneer or a half smile, like he was better than everyone else. Suki attempted. Together, she did. Her questions weren't even all that aggressive. But as soon as she touched on tough topics, his previous wives, the failure of the family, Cody closed up shop. He evaded. He redirected. It felt like watching someone try to rewrite history in real time, hoping everyone else forgot how it really went down. But fans didn't forget, and they weren't buying it. What hit hardest was when he looked right into the camera and said, I'm content. Content? While 3 of your wives are visibly hurting, undefined, while your entire family lies in ruins? That moment hurt like a slap. Online, fans went wild. Comment sections exploded with folks labeling him delusional, cold, utterly out of touch. Viewers who used to view him as the glue that held this messy family together now viewed a man who was barely holding himself together, emotionally shut down, and hanging on to ego. The man who previously stood steadfast at the center of this plural family had gradually become the cautionary tale. Proof of what happens when pride is substituted for compassion. It's truly painful to see. Cody was supposed to be the head man. Now he's the warning label. For years, Robyn Brown was the emotional heart of the Sister Wives clan. She was the tearful one. She was the soft-spoken one, who always seemed to be the most delicate. She came along as the peacemaker, the new girl who seemed to want to fit in graciously and humbly. And early on, some of the viewers did actually feel sympathetic towards her. She was entering into a complicated dynamic, working to establish her own place among women with decades of history between them. But along the way, the narrative inverted. That sympathy that many at one time felt? It's now distrust. And during the season 19 tell-all, that became impossible to ignore. Robyn's perpetual emotional breakdowns now came off as performative. Her language sounded too contrived. And then there was the camping trip tale, the one that broke what little there was of trust. Christine, Mary, and Janelle spoke of a family holiday. Everyone was pitching in, making breakfast, carrying equipment, trudging in the cold. Meanwhile, as they told it, Robyn was nowhere to be seen because she was in the trailer getting her makeup done. Robyn was confronted with what they said, and she refused any memory of it. She said she did not remember that at all. But fans remembered, and they had evidence. A veteran clip re-emerged on social media with Robyn, plain as day, putting on makeup during that same trip. The same trip she stated most likely never occurred. The same instant she swore she could not remember. And suddenly, the emotional performance started to look a tad too rehearsed. Veteran fans felt betrayed. It wasn't so much the lie, it was the ease with which she conveyed it. That careful recall, that innocent denial. It struck a chord. Viewers who'd been watching for over a decade suddenly felt gaslit by someone still pretending to be in the dark, even when the footage told a different story. Because this wasn't just about mascara in a camper, it was about trust. And for a lot of fans, that trust is gone. It was a blink and you miss it kind of moment, but for those really watching, it said everything. While Robyn struggled to defend herself on the tell-all, desperately trying to push aside the camping memory that had just been unearthed, Gwen just sat quietly in the background, tranquil, still, with a very subtle, unmistakable smile. Not mocking, not mean, just knowing, like someone who's been around too long to be shocked anymore. That small smile didn't require any words. It spoke volumes. Beside her, Suki struggled to keep her tone respectful. But there was strength behind her questions, a quiet firmness fans observed and admired. Robyn was fumbling, and Suki wasn't providing a soft way out. She kept pushing, not aggressively, but bluntly. And for once, someone wasn't accepting vague answers and tearful disavowals. There was no way out this time. Robyn was being called to account, even if only subtly. Then came the statement that changed everything. Cody's voice, recorded just moments after he believed the cameras were off. "Cut the cameras, please." That wasn't merely a cringe moment, it was symbolic. For years, Cody called the shots. He dictated scenes, determined who got to talk, and controlled the story from within the family. But now, that hushed plea sounded like the dying breath of a man who knew the spotlight no longer responds to him. Fans listened, and blew up. Internet forums were alight with demands for a new host, someone stronger than Suki, someone who'd get beneath the surface, push back against dodgy responses, and call out spin in the moment. But perhaps the actual change wasn't in the host. Perhaps it was in the women. Mary, Christine, Janelle, Gwen, even Suki. They're over-shrinking away. They've walked behind the curtain, shouldered the emotional burden, and they're taking back the story. Cody's control is loosening, and they're no longer afraid of him. When the tell-all finished, it should have delivered closure. Instead, it opened the gates. Comment sections, podcasts, Reddit threads. It was like a group scream of enough. Fans weren't merely disappointed, they were upset. The same old patterns were reenacted once again. Cody evading responsibility, Robyn pretending to be confused, and the wives who bore the emotional weight for years, getting little more than a turn to talk. And viewers had had enough. The air was different. People weren't tuning in just for drama anymore. They were tuning in for truth, for accountability, for whomever, to cease to pretend that Cody's side of things was the entire story. A fan summed it up best in a comment. Why do we still give Cody a platform to rewrite history? We saw what happened. That one statement caught nerve, and others voiced the same frustration. This was no longer simply about not liking a reality TV personality. It was about feeling like the show itself was protecting him. And that's why viewers began demanding something new. Not another reboot, not more Cody and Robyn retelling the same old tale. They wanted a spin-off. One centered around Christine, Mary, and Janelle, the three women who walked through the fire, found their strength, and came out the other side glowing. I'd absolutely watch a show that just follows the ex-wives living their best lives, one viewer commented. And that's exactly the energy so many fans are feeling now. We're done waiting for Cody to grow. We want to see the women who already have. It makes us remember when Tamron Hall used to host the tell-alls. She didn't beat around the bush about the hard topics. She questioned Cody with hard-hitting questions. She didn't walk on eggshells around his fragile ego, and poof, she was gone. Fans never forgot. Everyone is still talking about how Tamron's tough love style made Cody visibly shift uncomfortably in front of the camera, and how maybe, just maybe, that's the reason she never came back. The question still resonates, unasked but audible. Just how much control does Cody actually exert over what appears on air? Even now, with a new host at the helm, followers are paying close attention. Suki did speak up in some instances, credit where it's due. But too many think she held back in others, and now there's a renewed cry for a host who will not let uncomfortable truths pass, who will not gloss over hurt for the sake of tone or editing. Because this audience? We're no longer here just for messy drama. We're here for accountability. We want honesty. We want someone to finally say what viewers have been shouting for seasons. This isn't working. What's crystal clear now is that the fan base has outgrown the original storyline, the fantasy of unity, the illusion that faith and love alone could keep a polygamous family glued together. That dream has fallen apart. And while Cody clings to the rubble, viewers have moved on. We're following the women now, the ones who found their voices and walked away from the wreckage. We're not looking for apologies. We're looking for growth. At its heart, Sister Wives has always been about relationships. But now, it's about breaking free from the ones that kept people small. This isn't about cheap drama anymore. It's about truth. And that reality, for the majority of the fans, resides with the women, not with the man who continued attempting to revise history in the moment. Because what we just saw wasn't merely a family disintegrating. It was the failure of an illusion, a well-protected one. Cody and Robyn kept presenting the message over the course of many years that this was all about love, oneness, and mutual belief. But now, that picture is shattered. What we have left is something raw, something honest. A man falling apart, a woman losing credibility, and a family finally being honest enough to stop playing it off. So here's the question, and I really want to know what you think. Do you think Robyn really forgot what went down on that camping trip, or was it all an act? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them. We all need a forum to process this mess together. And if you're here for truth-telling, tea-spilling, and actual stories of growth, hit that like button, subscribe, and hang around right here with Reality Recap. I'm Anya, and I'll be right there with you as this saga continues to unfold. Because with the way this season concluded, with cringeworthy pauses, hot mic moments, and daughters smiling from the sidelines, you just know something monumental is on the horizon. A spin-off, a reckoning, perhaps both.